Amy, well, the president's soap opera-esque timing strikes again 24 hours before former FBI Director Jim Comey set to testify before the Senate Intelligence Committee. As you teased, Amy, President Trump has tweeted out the name of one Christopher Wray to be his new FBI director.
Yeah, he's been a litigator partner at King and Spalding law firm since he left the Justice Department in 2005. He joins a list of several names that were, being floated around. Poor former Senator Joe Lieberman, remember, he was at the top of the list for a while.
Out.
Yeah, he took himself out, but yeah, so it's official, Christopher A. Wray, and he's got a pretty decent resume.
He's was a federal prosecutor. He was in the Bush White House's Department of Justice, including, I believe, some time as head of the criminal division there. Oversaw prosecutions, including the Enron case. Mm-hmm. So pretty serious stuff. And
he was Chris Christie's personal attorney during the Bridgegate investigation.
Correct. Yes, that's right. So he was one of those that were individuals interviewed a couple months back when this occurred. He just didn't have the name recognition of a Joe Lieberman, for example, so it didn't get much attention. But that's the selection. And
the first thing out of my mouth was, timing is everything.
It really is.
It really, is this just taking a distraction off of something else? Is this, he was supposed to make this announcement before he went on his first foreign trip.
The point is, it's yeah. The timing is, I think, pretty smart. And assuming what I sense about Wray, that he's a respected prosecutor, Trump and the administration can now point to say, look, what, you don't have confidence in this guy? I suspect he's got good relationships with the FBI during his time in justice, and as a federal prosecutor, I suspect he's fairly well respected. There's nothing that I'm aware of in his background that suggests otherwise. And so I said, this whole thing doesn't rise or fall with Jim Comey. Go ahead, let justice with Rod Rosenstein overseeing and Christopher Wray, along with the deputy McCabe, go ahead. Pursue the Russian collusion case and anything else you have to investigate, like, I don't know, the actual crimes, leaks, Flynn's unmasking, wherever it may be, and get off this topic. And, oh, by the way, Jeff Sessions, don't resign. For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by our friend Tim Carney. He is senior political columnist for the Washington Examiner, WashingtonExaminer.com. Tim, thanks for joining us. How about Trump's timing?
So I think it would have been a little better had he done it tomorrow at about 9:30.
Yeah.
Before the hearing. A little more dramatic, but this gives us a day to talk about him. And so Chris Wray was on that list that we saw before. Wasn't one of the ones that caught my eye. So like everybody else, we're just this morning trying to learn what we can. You guys did a pretty good summary of him. What we at the Examiner said again and again when he fired Jim Comey was, half of we won't know how inappropriate the firing was till we see who he replaces him with. And if he replaces him with a crony, and we gave the names Rudy Giuliani,
right,
or Chris Christie, if he replaces him with somebody like that, then it really was him just trying to clear out a guy who was digging into him. And if he replaces him with a serious, independent-minded career attorney who has sort of proven not just sort of capability, but also neutrality and objective ability to objectively examine the law and the facts, then he's got a better defense. And so we'll vet Wray over the next day or so, and that's what we're looking for. Is he a guy who divorces politics from his assessment of what the law and the facts are?
Does it say anything, though, that he was an attorney for Chris Christie for Bridgegate?
Well, to me, that it's certainly a red flag, but I don't think it's a disqualification. It's part of the legal system that everybody deserves a lawyer. And so if you see what Ray's career has been, it was in DOJ, sort of prosecuting white-collar crimes, at the law firm of King and Spalding, defending some of them. This is sort of the typical career path of any attorney. So I've always said you can't blame an attorney for his clients. I said this when people were attacking Hillary Clinton for some of the people she defended. It could reflect that what we already sort of know about Trump is that he really wants a very sort of New York ethnic way. You want somebody who somebody vouches for, and that's what it tells me.
On Jim Comey, so you want an FBI director who divorces politics from the enforcement of the law, from the investigations that lead to the enforcement of the law. It doesn't seem to me that you can credibly make the case that Jim Comey is that person based on just the last year of his career. And it continues even in advance of tomorrow's testimony with his refusal to not only appear before the Senate Judiciary Committee, but also to answer questions associated with other interactions with DOJ officials, if he shared the contents of his memos with people inside or outside justice, if he retained copies of the memos, and if so, would he turn them over to the committee? He apparently emailed Feinstein and Grassley and said, I don't have to answer those questions because I'm a private citizen.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Comey gets to select what he is and is not going to answer and to whom he is going to answer. That sounds like a guy who is focused on reputation management, not...
let me make a distinction.
Not anything revelatory.
Let me make a distinction between politically motivated and reputational management. I think that was a good phrase you used. So I talk to people who've worked with Jim Comey, and they say he very much values his reputation. And the good thing about that is that the reputation he wanted was a reputation of sort of the straight shooter, and maybe thinking about how to be that guy a little too hard. It's like concentrating on your golf swing a little too much. Yeah. I think he stumbled a little during the election and after the election. And I don't think he was trying to accomplish any political ends with when he cleared Hillary Clinton, when he made the announcement of the letter, and then when he made the second announcement of the clearing all right before the election. I think that was him sort of stretching to sort of awkward lengths and into awkward positions to try to be a straight shooter. Does he care immensely about his reputation? We all do. I'm told that Comey cares more than most. So that I think is an important distinction to make. And yeah, it's one of the advantages of getting fired by the federal government. It gives you more freedom to say what you want to say or don't want to say.
Well, but just a point of order, he'll take judicial notice as an officer of the court that what you produce in your public sector job is government work product, and you're duty-bound to turn it over.
No, and that's the thing. I think that memo is, this was the story with Hillary, right? She was creating public records. She was creating official records, but not handing them over to the authorities. Were his notes that he was taking, not as his kid's Little League game, but as part of his job, are they government records? I would say so, yes. And is there sort of a right for the Congress to call them forward? I would say yes. And a right for the public to see them? I would say yes. What we have now is sort of this third-hand thing where somebody, presumably not Jim Comey, read his personal contemporaneous notes out loud over the phone to a reporter who then reported it. That's hearsay of hearsay is what it is. Oh. And so I'm biased because I'm a journalist, but I think he owes it and the FBI owes it to show us his contemporaneous notes.
What do you think he's going to say when they ask him, why do you think you were fired? Because they're going to ask that. Yeah,
and I don't think he'll make the harshest judgment of Trump, though, some of the stuff that's been reported from anonymous sources would lend itself to that. I don't think he's that kind of guy. That's why the word sort of grandstander that Trump used about him I thought was odd. Again, does he really care about his reputation? Yes. Does that get him in trouble sometimes? Yes. But grandstander was not the right word. I don't think he'll say, I think I was fired because I was investigating Donald Trump's campaign's connection with Russia. I don't think he'll say that.
No, but
that'll disappoint a lot of Democrats.
Well, but he is prone to make statements of a political or geopolitical nature. I mean, remember a statement, I think it was the last time he testified before Congress in May, where he talked about how much Putin hated Hillary Clinton.
Yeah,
what does that have to do with anything? And how do you know?
Yeah, no, and there have been times that you've seen him just go over that line. You want sort of lawyers, especially government lawyers, to really, and senators' jobs are to ask them questions to go beyond the narrow focus of their job. you want them to stay in their swim lanes, and they sometimes don't. I remember Patrick Fitzgerald doing that in the Scooter Libby thing, where he was dinging Scooter Libby for obstruction of justice, but he went out of his way to give a speech about how he thought the leak of Valerie Plame's identity was shameful. And it's not your job to say what's shameful, and Comey has done that occasionally. It's just gone afield from what his job is, and so that could give some crafty senators an opening to get something interesting.
Well, just on the Patrick Fitzgerald example, he also famously said in Illinois when he indicted Rod Blagojevich, the governor, that Lincoln is rolling over in his grave. I mean, are you a politician or are you a prosecutor? And that's the thing. That's the thing with
some
Comey.
Weird sort of undertaker who knows what's going on in the cemetery.
Well, right. Well, okay, sure. Yeah, that's a possibility as well. What do you expect to come of tomorrow's testimony from Comey? Does it advance the case in one direction or the other, or does it just keep it front and center?
If he sort of confirms the idea that Trump was trying to get him to back off the Russia investigation, I think that really focuses things. Because right now we have all that stuff anonymous and secondhand for the most part. And does that mean that there was obstruction of justice? No, but is that something inappropriate for the president to do? I think so. Maybe it's just a political issue rather than a legal issue, but maybe it's a legal issue. So that's the question. Did the president try to pressure Jim Comey to get the federal law enforcement off of the investigation into Russia's meddling? And more specifically, what's come out in these anonymously sourced reports is that Trump seemed, according to these reports, Trump seemed to be trying to protect Mike Flynn, who, in my opinion, is half of the reason Trump is in this trouble. I think the Russia story is Paul Manafort, who was campaign chairman for a bit, and Mike Flynn, Trump's original national security advisor, have had inappropriate relations with the Russian government. And Trump's desire to protect him, to me, is inexplicable. So if that has been going on, which is what these anonymous reports say has been going on, then that would be one of the most interesting things that could come out tomorrow.
All right. He is Tim Carney, senior political columnist for the Washington Examiner, WashingtonExaminer.com. Tim, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Dan. Thanks, Amy.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.